Hello, and welcome to this week's Rocket Brand live stream. Just checking up on that everything is going okay. I think the stream health looks good. Everything's good. So we got some people. Hey Fuad, how you doing? Yep, first comment. David, how you doing? Glad to have you here. It's always good to see people appear in the chat. Lets me know that everything's working. So this week, Liam, hey, how you doing? Great to have you on as well. We're going to be talking about the one concept approach to logo design. Something which I've been doing for a few years, something which I will never change from, considering I did the, I suppose, more traditional approach of multiple concept designs. Client hires you to create their logo, and you would create a few different concepts and present those to the client. I used to do that. I did that for like 15 years. And now I don't. Now I present one concept. And as I put in my tweet earlier, and also in the description of this video, some people think you're crazy. What do you mean you only give one concept? That's either they think it's ridiculous and you're being a cheapskate because you're only providing one concept, or they think you're crazy because and we'll discuss this. The client may not like the concept that you give them, so you're kind of stuffed at that point. But I want to kind of just go through this today, and just give my thoughts, how it was in me sort of making that transition, and what it's like today to use that approach when it comes to logo design, and how it's actually literally changed my business, changed in how much I charge. Not so much really in how long it takes, because I have a process, but I suppose it's lended itself to that really well. It actually helped me finesse my process, so it's helped from that respect as well. But I'm just going to do, this isn't an advert. I don't have any sponsorship on the channel, but I do just want to have a quick shout out for the Discord group that I have, the Rocky Brand Discord. We've got 60 members in there now, which is awesome. We've got some good discussions going on in there now every day. What were we talking about recently? I think we were talking about SWOT shows quite recently, and choosing colour, and the difference between SWOT shows and Pantone books, and the benefits to both of them. Really, they both have benefits for different situations, but there's lots of different topics we talk about. We've got Phil, who joined recently. I know Phil personally through going to heavy metal festivals. Phil is a design lecturer, but he also, I don't know if you can see this, he also runs a stall at rock festivals called the Motley Brew. It's a tea stand, so you get cups of tea and stuff when you're there, and they have lots of puns based on heavy metal band names and tracks. This is my Motley Brew cup. So I just want to say a big shout out to Phil for joining the Discord. He's very experienced, so great to have him in there. I'm sure he can contribute a lot. So if you're new to design and you want to learn more, then jump over and join the Discord group. You can join it at this web address you can see on screen, discord.gg/RYB. It's free. There's no fees to join it. You can just join part of a great community, and hopefully I'll see you in there at some point. So let's crack on and talk about this one concept approach. As usual, I have my super sexy white background with black text just to keep me on track. Hey Henry, how you doing? Good to see you on here. I know it's going to be crazy late for you. What is that now? 7 o'clock here, so like 2 a.m. for you. So I really appreciate the efforts that you make to join these live streams. It means a lot. So if you've got any questions about, this as I'm going through it, I may answer some of your questions whilst I'm going through this whiteboard approach. Hey, Julian. But, feel free to pop your questions into the chat, and I'll make sure to check that and answer any that come in. So the one concept approach. Let's see. So even though I did know at the time. So when you're producing multiple concepts for clients, it's a lot of work. Let's see. So I've seen some people advertise their logo design service with like unlimited options until you are happy, right? Which is just crazy to me. And that might be, unlimited options or unlimited revisions. Madness, absolute madness. You cannot survive doing that. You're going to burn out. Time is money in this industry. So really you want to be, using your time well, and every minute of your time should be profitable. So unless you're charging like crazy money that you can spend forever on a logo, because some clients will, they'll take you to your word, and they will want revision after revision after revision. And I know that many people, many designers, if they're watching this, will feel the pain of that, of clients just constantly asking for revisions. Oh, can I see it in red? Can I see it in blue? Can I see it in this font? Can I see it this size? Can I see it? And you just become a Mac monkey, and you're just, pushing pixels around until they're happy. So if you're given more than 4 options right now, then just, my advice would be to stop doing that, because you are going to burn out. It's not a good place to be. So that's, my point there is, you can end up in revisions hell. And also, the client can't make their mind up. You're presenting all this stuff, and then you're basically saying to them, choose one. Choose which one you like the best. Which one do you like the best for your business? And that's not really how the process should work. Because what's going to happen, and what often happens, and this option here is the thing that made me change and move to one concept, is that you can end up with a Frankenstein's monster, where the client's like, well, I like a bit of that one, and I like what you've done on that one, and I like the color on that one, maybe with the typography of this one over here. And so you're just pulling in elements from these different logo designs to make this like mashup of bits that the client likes. But they're probably not going to work together as a cohesive logo, and even less unlikely to be suitable for their brand. It's just going to be a big crunching together of separate elements that the client happens to like, because you're forcing them to make a choice. So they will make a choice, and they will just choose what they like. And to be honest, by that point, if you've been working on multiple options and you're tired and you just want the job done and you just want paid, you may just go, great, let's do it. Pull all those parts together and just give them the logo and wave them on their way, because you just want to see the back of it. Nobody wants to be in a position like that. You want to be producing your best work. The saying is, you're only as good as the last job that you do. And if you're embarrassed by it, what you don't want is, you don't want that client going out there sharing it on social saying, hey, here's, I've just had my logo designed by Call, look at this. And and it's terrible. And they might like it because they've picked the elements, but everyone else looking at it is just like, yeah, that really sucks. I'm not going to hire that Call guy. He obviously doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to logo design. So you really don't want to be getting into the Frankenstein's monster area of things. Julian's saying there, you get burnt out and you get resentful. You do. Resentful's that's a good thing to bring up, because you can start to get antagonized, by the client asking for all of these changes, and you just want to get the job done, and it's not their fault. It's not the client's fault. I see a lot of designers blaming the client, and I can understand why, but like saying, "Oh, I did all of these concepts and the client chose the worst of the bunch," or they chose the one which I thought was the weakest. Whose fault is that? It's not the client's fault. That's your fault as the designer for presenting something that you thought was the weakest of the bunch, or something that you didn't like. And really, you've only put them in front of the client because you've said to the client, you're going to present 4 concepts. And so you have to put them on the screen in front of them. And so if the client decides that that's the one, they like the weakest of the bunch, that's your problem for presenting that to the client. So, jumping into a design forum and then moaning because the client has chosen the worst one is kind of a bad thing to do. You're bad-mouthing a client for a decision that really they didn't have any control over, knowing that wasn't a good one to go for. So that's something that, that kind of irks me a little bit, is that side of things, where the client gets the blame. And really, it's not the client's fault. It's entirely down to the designer and their approach. So like I said, you aren't making any money. You may think you're making money because you're getting paid at the end of it. But if you work on it forever and then you break down how many hours you've worked on it and then divide that into the amount you're getting paid, how much are you actually getting paid per hour? I don't advocate hourly, charging by the hour, but we need an hourly rate behind the scenes to kind of work out what a project will be. But if you're getting paid hourly and that's what you've said to the client, and the client's agreed to pay you every hour that you're working on it, then, you're in the money. But most of the time the client will want a set fee. And so, if you're charging $150 for a logo and you're spending 40 hours on it or more, and you divide that into your $150, it's not a lot of money per hour. And you need to be making enough money to pay your bills. You need to be making enough money to pay yourself, and you also need to be making a profit. That's the whole point. And most of the, I'm talking mostly to freelancers, solo designers, like myself, not people really who work as designers inside agencies, because you get paid a fixed wage. So, if your boss is letting you just work on designs forever, you get paid the same no matter what anyway. But I would imagine you still want to finish that design because you want to get that done and move on to something new. But yeah, you need to be making a profitable living, or you may as well just get a job, working someplace else, and not having all of the time, the pressure, and the stress of being a designer if you're not, really making any money at it. And I know that's tough when you're starting out, and that's a different topic. But time is money as a designer. It's a service that you're providing. So you do need to think about your processes so that you are making a profit. Yeah, and we talked about, the reason that you're giving this many options is that you feel that you aren't giving the client enough choice. Let me just quickly check the chat here. I know David was given a second shout out for the Discord channel, which is very nice of you. Thank you. David's saying, as a newbie who hasn't started the professional route yet, I'm drawn to a one concept process where the client is fully notified and involved throughout the whole journey. The thing that puts me off about the three concept presentation is that it makes it seem like the logo version of Blind Date. Yeah, so you're preempting some of the stuff which I will talk about here, and it's very much like that. And we've talked about burning out. So, and that's when you give, 4+. Now, we move on to what I'll call the tried and trusted three concept method. This is what most people do. It's what I did for a long, long time, was I would create three concepts. So it didn't matter what industry the client was in, I would create three logo concepts. Usually they were quite different. I didn't want to, it wasn't a case of three slightly different variations on the same theme. It would be quite different, and that's difficult. You're essentially producing three logos every time you do a logo job, and that that's a lot of work to do that. So let's have a look at some of the things that I've written down here, which I can't quite remember. So this will be a surprise to me as much to you. So you've still got all the same issues above. These don't go away because you are still presenting multiple concepts. So you still have all of these. All of these will still rear their ugly head in the three concept method. And the problem is, again, these will still relate back to the one above, but the problem that you have is that your time is divided because you've said you're going to give three concepts. And so you have to spend the time creating three viable options. You can't spend all of your time on one and then, be like, okay, this is the one that's, that I'm going to spend most of my time on, and then do two, which when you present the three of them, two of them look very out of place because they've not had much thought gone into them, so they just look a bit weird. But sometimes, though, that is when you spend time on one and you go, this is it, this is the one that I think's going to, this is the one that's going to be the best for this job. But I need to do these other two so that I've got the three, and then the client picks one of those two, and you're left with going, okay. And one of the things I've done this myself, where the client's gone to one of the ones which I thought were weaker, and then I'm trying to steer them to the one which I believe is the best one. That's a tough conversation because you're like asking them, you're presenting three and you're saying, well, which one do you like the best? Which, and then they go to that one, and then you're then having to say, well, actually, I think this one's the best. Okay, well, why did you present these other two then? And it just becomes a really awkward conversation to have. So it's just another reason that having multiple things on the page isn't always the best way to go about it. And what you do, you spread what could be so let's say in that example I just talked about there, you are working on, that central one that's got, a good concept around it, but then you're spreading, you're getting that butter knife and you're spreading that concept out over another two, so you're weakening all three rather than having a really solid, presentable concept for the brand in one logo. You're kind of like, I'll take elements of this and kind of spread it out so that there is a link between the three, so it does look cohesive, that I'm presenting three logos that do fit, they fit in some way or another, but it's watered down. And a lot of clients can see that when you're presenting. And we've already talked about this one, so they might choose the one which is the weakest of your options. Who's the expert? Who's the expert in the room when you're at that point of, whether it's projector or, you've got your iPad or your laptop and you're showing off these designs to the client. By asking the client to choose, you're deferring the expertise to them. And you should be the expert. You're saying, which one do you think's best? Which one do you like best? Which one should you choose? It's not. They're paying you to be the designer to solve the problem. So asking them is kind of making them like the creative director in the room, and that's not their skill. You're the expert, so you should be telling them. You should be telling them which one is the right one for them. And if you ask a client to choose, then they're probably going to choose on personal likes and dislikes. And, damn the strategy if you did any, in the beginning. And I think if you've watched my live streams, I'm a strategy guy. Strategy first before the design. But all that strategy goes out the window if you're just basically asking them to choose which one they think's the best one, because it'll become subjective to them. They'll be like, well, I don't actually like red myself. And they'll start to they'll define problems, so they'll be, if let's say they're an accountant, I use accountants a lot because I do a lot of branding for accountants. But the color red, for example, is a color that most accountants will stay away from because red is a bad color in their world. You don't want to be in the red, you want to be in the black. But if you've done strategy work and you've found that, based on the type of client that they're trying to win, high energy, entrepreneurial, wants to move fast, red's a really good color signal to them because, it's fiery, it's passionate. But if you just, say to them, choose which one you think's best, and you've got 3 options, one of them's red and that's the one that you think is going to be the best one for them, but another one is blue and another one is green, chances are they're probably going to go for the blue one because they feel that one's safer and calmer and it's not going to upset anyone. And all of the strategy work just goes out the window, because you've now given the client the choice to make that decision. I've mentioned this already. You end up becoming a Mac monkey, or a Mac monkey. Let's just make that a Mac monkey. Just pushing pixels around until the client's happy. That's kind of taking us back up to the top of unlimited revisions almost. It's like, just, can you move that over there? Can you make this size? Can you make it this color? So they're just basically standing at your shoulder, moving your hand around, pushing your mouse till they're happy. And it's not our job. That's not our job to do that. Our job is to advise and solve problems on the client's behalf. That's what they're paying you for. And you need to be the one to set the expectations of what's coming. And that lends itself more to the, what I'm about to talk about, which is the one concept approach. David's added, also outside the scope of design, as I know, but as a writer, I wouldn't provide 3 different articles to an editor or publisher. It's a good point. It's like if you looked at other industries, how does that work? I mean, I'm sure the thing is, I think that David, you're saying, as a writer, you wouldn't provide 3 different articles to an editor. Maybe some people do. I don't know. It's not my world. Maybe in the music industry, people are asked to go write a song. Do they come back and present 3 different songs, or do they come back with one song, which, they've written lyrics to, but then is, tweaked and refined till it becomes the final song? I don't know. Again, I don't really have any knowledge in that industry, but that may be how that works. And Julian saying it's also about educating the client into the process. It's all about trust in the end, and it is. So these are problems that happen when you present multiple concepts. So I got really burned out doing this. I got burned out. I got frustrated. I think it was, Julian said, I started to get resentful of certain clients who were asking me to make all of these changes, and it just, and then you'd think that you'd all come to an agreement and the job was done, but then they'd go away and then they'd come back a day later going, actually, now that I've slept on it, can we look at this again? And it just got really, really tiring. And it wasn't, like I said, it's not the client's fault. I was, I'm the one to blame. I introduced this process for what it was, of sort of, unlimited, even though I hadn't said unlimited. And the thing is as well, even when you say, it depends on how confident you are with clients, but a lot of people will say, okay, we'll do three concepts, you choose one, and then we'll do 3 rounds of revisions, or maybe 2 rounds of revisions, or maybe 1 round of revisions. But, I know that for myself, even though I would put that in writing, the chances are if the client wanted multiple revisions, I would just do them. I would very rarely would I like pick up the quote or the proposal and tap it and say, hey, one round of revisions is included. If you want more, that's extra money. I just wouldn't do that. I just didn't have the confidence at the time to do that. Always felt that the client was the boss. They were paying the money, so I needed to do what they wanted in order to get paid. So I'm sure there's many other people who are in that boat, and I'm sure there are people who are confident now, and can do that. Now, I can do that now. I have the confidence now. I have very much a scope of work. Here's what will happen in the process. And if we go beyond that, then we need to sit down and have a discussion about, the extra fees involved. I'm really confident with that now, but I wasn't back then. And so I always have to put myself back into the person I was, 5, 10, 15 years ago. Not the person I am now, but back, way back then. And I know there's a lot of people who are like I was back then. And it can be scary. It's a scary time to talk about that. So I decided I needed to do something different, and I'd heard about this one concept approach, and it scared the living daylights out of me. Moving from presenting multiple concepts to just the one. And so I had the fear. I had a massive fear of everything that could go wrong. Just moving to one approach or one concept. And like I say, it's a scary transition, when you're used to presenting multiple concepts. It really is, just presenting that one. What if they don't like it? What if I put all of my efforts in and they don't like it? What if they ask me to present multiple concepts at the start? Okay, Carl, yeah, we're going to hire you. You're going to present us with multiple concepts, yeah? We'll get to choose from different designs, yeah? Happens a lot. You lose that safety of presenting a few options. Pressure is now on you. It's an all or nothing. One concept. Make or break. That really gives people the fear. When you've got multiples, you feel safer because you're like, well, they're going to choose one. I'm going to give them 3. They're bound to choose one, and then we can kind of work on that one till they're happy with it. So there's sort of like a safety net with multiple options. And I think I'm going to move on to the next bit. Yeah, so let's go through this. So what if they don't like it? Liking it kind of comes in. You want your client to like what you do, but it really isn't about them liking it. It's more, and I've said this before as well, it's more about, does the logo concept that you're presenting to them fit their brand? Does it fit the goals that you all discussed at the beginning, and you should be discussing these? Does it fit the brand? Not do they like red or do they like green or do they like, sans serif or serif. Is what you've produced solving the problem that they came to you for? What if they ask you to present multiple concepts? Well, the answer is no. You explain your process and you tell them that, you follow a one concept approach because you feel that's the best option for them. You put all of your efforts into presenting the best solution for their brand. And that's, again, a lot of the stuff that I say around this does require confidence in your abilities, confidence in your knowledge, and just confidence in speaking to people and, bringing that expert and the authority that you need to bring up in order to show the client that you are the best option. I don't say to convince the client that you're the best option. I'm not a big fan of using the word convince. It's showing, show them that you have the knowledge and the expertise to do a one concept approach. Just check here. Hey Eric, sorry I didn't see you join there. Eric saying, I've always used the one concept method. Do you think it's a bad idea to make one concept for a business first before contacting them, just to show them how their logo could be on maybe business cards? Well, you could, but my whole process is about the strategic work so that you're presenting. So what you could do there is, yes, you could create a logo which you think visually, from an aesthetic point of view, looks better, but unless you know the strategic goals, their target audience, how they're trying to differentiate in their industry, what their tone of voice is. Now, you might be able to pick some of that up from like their website and their marketing, but unless you speak to the owner or the marketing team, you're not going to know that. And so you are just producing something which may look better, may look more modern, it may fit a certain style. So yeah, you can do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I don't think you would be doing the right thing. I think you need to know a lot of the strategic stuff before you can create a one concept solution for them. And that's how I would approach it anyway. But yeah, you could definitely, if their logo looks terrible, you could produce something which looks, more modern, bit sexy, show on some mock-ups. Then yeah, you might be able to sell that to them. But it's not a solid, strategically built solution. So what have I got next here? So the win. So what's the win with the one concept? So I've probably talked about some of this already. You get to focus on the best solution to the problem. Just the one. You're not going, I need to push another. I've got another two that I need to put together to present to them. Everything, all of your energies goes into producing the one best solution. You base your thought process on research, strategic thinking, and goals, not just the aesthetics or the industry stereotypes, which is kind of what I just sort of mentioned to you there, Eric. So this is you just put here, Eric's just written, thank you for my response, but then he's written it's for a chiropractor. And so like a chiropractor, a dentist, an accountant, we all have stereotype imagery that comes into our mind for businesses like that. So a chiropractor, you're thinking maybe a spine shape, it's about bones, it's about posture. So you think, I've got a really cool idea for a chiropractor. I could do this spine shape. Maybe their name begins with an S, and I could weave that in or something like that. But for me, that's a stereotype, and there's probably going to be a lot of other chiropractors who have very, similar themes, or not similar, the same theme, but just maybe designed slightly differently. Whereas when you start to use strategy and look at the business goals and look at the type of people that they're trying to attract, your thought processes are different. You move away from the stereotype, you move away from the obvious, you move away from purely thinking about the aesthetics, and you start to think about creating a logo that is representative of a lot of those things. And so when you do create something, what you often create is a logo which doesn't look like any other chiropractor logo. It stands out on its own. It becomes a unique identifier in the chiropractic space. Something which is different. Something which sends a different message to people. Now, it might be that, yes, in the end, you do end up with something which, is maybe leans on the stereotype. But that will be based on the journey that you follow through the research and, the strategy work that you do, because that may be the best fit for the target audience that they're after. But if they're maybe looking to be more sophisticated, a little bit more, they have a slightly different type of demographic, then the logo may be more abstract in nature rather than, sort of obvious. And obviously I'm talking about, brand strategy and stuff here, and you may be watching this, and you may create logos and you don't do any strategy. I was the same. I didn't know about strategy when I started. I was creating logos for a long time with what I would say was no strategy. I would ask questions, but those questions were usually, can you show me some examples of logos you like? What colors do you like? What colors do you not like? So it was very, again, getting into, the client's likes and dislikes rather than looking at it from a brand perspective and what was best for their brand. It was very much the person I was speaking to, what do you like? What do you not like? And then I would create a logo, or I would create multiple logo concepts that were based on knowing what they liked and didn't like, and then asking them, which one do you like the most? And then they would choose the one that they liked the most, and I would get paid, and then I would move on to the next one. But when I started to learn about strategy and how that could make a big difference, that started to really sort of fit in with the one concept approach, because what that did was, it meant, I don't know if I've actually written this down. Yeah. It gave me confidence, because by doing strategy and putting all of my thinking into one concept, I was way more confident that what I was presenting was the right solution, and I was prepared for questions. So when the client would say, why have you chosen red? I would be able to say, well, we've chosen red because if you remember when we were going through the strategic side of things, we were looking at these types of people, the types of places they hang out, the archetypal mix. We felt they were like maverick, rebellious, and so red really fits that. So I was able, through data and research, to state that that's the right color for their brand because of this, rather than saying it looks good, or you said you liked red, or you wanted red. It's very much more problem solving and a solutions based approach. So, and you look way more like an expert, and that you have authority and you know what you're talking about, because you're backing it up with all of this really good, solid research that you've done. And I just said there, you remain the expert, because you're not asking them to choose which one they like the best. You're not presenting one concept and saying, do you like this? You're presenting one concept and saying, do you agree that based on the work that we've done up to this point, based on the explanation of my process, based on all of the strategy, that this concept fits your brand? It's a very different conversation. It's a very different approach to the multiple options. Now, you can, don't get me wrong, you can do brand strategy and still present 3 options. I'm not saying, that you don't do that. And I'm sure there are many logo designers that do a lot of brand strategy, but still present multiple options. So, strategy can still be involved, but my thing to that would be, is you're doing all of that strategy, then you're producing 3 logos based on that strategy. That's still 3 times the work, and I just don't think it's needed. If you're doing the strategy, if you know what if you know where you should be pointed, because that's what the strategy does, it points you in the right direction. You should only need to create 1 concept. You shouldn't need to be doing 3. And I do think that doing 3 is the safety net. I think it's the confidence thing, of being able to produce 3 and say, they'll choose 1. I think it's a safety net thing. Taking that safety net away is pretty scary, scary thing to do. And the client wants the best solution from you. They don't want to be put on the spot to choose a logo. It's like they're paying you to provide the solution. Asking them to choose which one's right puts them on the spot, and they'd be like, well, what if I choose the wrong one? Why aren't you telling me which is the right one? Why are you making me ask? And you might feel that it's the right thing to do. You're involving them in the process. They're getting to pick which one they like the best. But again, I sound like, a broken record. It's not about which one they like. It's about which one fits. Julian's asking, Col, have you lost work by going for the 1 concept approach? We'll get to that. And Henry's saying, yeah, I'm still doing that brand strategy and still providing the 3 logo options. Yeah, and I'm sure there's tons of people that do. And to be honest, I didn't start doing brand strategy when I moved to the 1 concept approach. I was doing brand strategy whilst I was presenting 3 concepts as well. I didn't just start doing it with the 1 concept. What did happen was when I started doing the 1 concept approach, there's more pressure, like I mentioned before, to, it's an all or nothing kind of thing. It's like, this has got to be right. And so what that did was that made me really up my game. And I got, I really started to dive into brand strategy and really start to understand it. I invested heavily in it. I went on courses. When Martin Neumeier, the author of The Brand Gap, when he announced that he was doing his level C brand specialist course, which was like the level 1, they're now up to, I think they're doing level 3. I've only done level 1, the brand specialist one. I jumped at the chance to do that, to meet Marty, but also to learn from like the best and really up my level of knowledge on brand strategy. So whereas I knew about brand strategy and I was doing some level of it, when it came to moving to the 1 concept, I wanted to make sure that I was doing my absolute best, the most that I could do and understand about strategy, so that when I presented the logo, I felt super confident. So Henry, I'm not surprised that that you are doing that. There will be many people that do, and many of those people do eventually start to think about the 1 concept approach and transition over to that. What have I got here? We must be getting near the end now. So there are requirements to this. You may be kind of watching me or listening to me talk about this and being like, brand strategy, learning all that stuff. When I've got the time to do that. But to move into sort of a 1 concept approach, if you're new to logo design, it might not be easy, because the thing is as well, when you're trying to pitch this to a client, and maybe they've had logos designed in the past and they're used to getting given multiple concepts as a deliverable, and you haven't got any background behind you of other sort of 1 concept approaches, so obviously I moved from a 3 concept approach to 1 concept approach. So for my first few, I didn't really have much of a background, but I did have successful projects behind me. So I had authority as an experienced designer. So it was easy, it was easier to make that shift. I was able to kind of use language and show results so that, I was able to kind of move clients over to that one concept process. But if you're new to design, then that can be trickier, and it may be that you need to do a few concepts, 2 to 3 concepts, get used to the presenting, get some stuff behind you. But I'm not saying you can't. There's nothing stopping you from going straight in and just doing the one concept approach. But my experience as well is that the further down the scale you are in terms of how much you charge, you'll be dealing with a certain level of client. And I found through my experience over the years that the clients that aren't willing to pay much are the clients that want to see all the changes, all the revisions, many, many options, because they're not treating you as an expert. They're treating you as just like, we just need a logo, and there's that word "just." Oh, we just need a logo, and so they don't take it seriously, and so they feel like they can kind of just ask for all of this stuff. The higher up you go in terms of how much you charge, you tend to attract clients who have an understanding of design, and so they put more trust in you as the expert, and so they tend to, they will take your word if you say, this is the best thing for your brand, or I recommend that we use this color based on the strategy, or I recommend we use this font because it gives off this emotion, and we talked about that's the emotion. They will go along with it because they trust you as the expert. So it can be more difficult, the newer you are to the industry, to have the right client that's going to actually accept a one concept approach. So you might have to do, kind of work a little while doing multiple concepts or multiple revisions until you can work yourself up through that. But please don't let me put you off from trying to do the one concept approach. There are people who are open to it, and if you can kind of show a good process, and show why you're doing it and what the benefits are, then you should be able to onboard clients who are really open to that approach. So I've probably gone through a lot of that just in my last answer. So, having a good understanding of brand strategy and how to do really good background research on, the business and the industry sector that you're working on is a key thing to being able to produce the right concept at the end. So you need to start, if you haven't already, you need to start looking into brand strategy, have a really good understanding of it so that you can start to implement that. And also having that knowledge, and that experience in that area will set you apart from the other designers who aren't doing that. And so that lets you leverage your pricing. When you start to describe your process to your clients and say, here's what we do. Here's what we do in the process. We start off by, getting to know you, getting to know your business, getting to know your goals, and then we'll discuss, we'll look at the strategic side of things. What's your vision? What values, tone of voice, all of that. We'll do all of that before we even think about doing any design work, because we need to have a really good picture of who you are and where you want to go and who you're trying to target. And that will give a client confidence in that they're getting value for money from you. And so knowing this stuff will help you to level up in terms of your pricing. You need to be very good at asking questions. So you need to dig deep. You need to start asking, go below the surface on things. And one of the first questions, people come to me and say, Wacol, I need a logo. And I'll ask them, why do you think you need a logo? And sometimes it's the problem that they're having with their business. It's usually they are maybe tired of the, I'm tired, I just think we need a change. Okay, is that the best thing for the brand? Just because the brand owner's tired of it, because the brand owner sees it every single day, so they may get tired of it. But if that logo's doing its job out in the wide world and people can recognize it instantly and they spot the brand and they know the brand and it brings recall and it brings the messaging that they've built up over the years of marketing and stuff, and then they decide to change it just because the brand owner's tired of it, that could undo a lot of the work that's been done. So making sure that you ask the client, what's the problem that you're having that makes you think you need a new logo? Because it might not be that. What it might be is they might just actually need to take a look at their marketing materials and, a different marketing campaign or a refresh of their photography or something. It might not be the logo itself. So that's just, an entry level question. But that one question of, what's the problem that you're having that, with your brand that makes you think you need to change the logo, can open a lot of doors to a lot of areas that you can, you need to start asking questions about. Just taking it at face value and saying, okay, let's design you a new logo, you could actually be creating more problems for the brand than you're solving. So again, that shows you as an expert, it shows you as an authority figure that you know what you're doing, that you're not just going to take their money off of them, because they need a logo. You're going to ask questions. And some of them might be tough questions and they may not have thought about the answer. And you need to be prepared as well to actually, because of asking that question, you might not get the client, because they might turn around and go, you know what, you're right. I shouldn't change my logo. Thank you very much. You've saved me a lot of money. And then they may just walk away. So you need to be prepared for that. That's where having something like, a lot of people do a discovery call, but they tend to be free, so it's just, discovery call to get to know the client and things. But I'm always of the opinion that if I've helped them, even though I've made no money, if I've helped them and they've gone away and they feel like they've solved a problem, and obviously I've saved them from spending money in the wrong place, there's, I'm a bit of a believer in karma. They are more likely to recommend me to someone else in their business network. If they hear somebody say, do you know anyone that would do a logo or something? The chances are they're probably going to recommend you because you've been super helpful. You didn't just try and, take their money off of them. So yeah, be prepared that when you ask questions, you may lose a client because it's not actually a logo. But really, that's maybe happened to me once. Most of the time, what it does is it turns into other design work. The logo's fine, but it turns into a new brochure or, let's look at your web graphics or let's look at something else. So it will turn into something else at the end of the day. Hey, Esther. Esther's saying, I'm set to revise a logo for a client and this is perfect timing. I don't know if you've just joined, but hopefully you can watch back from the beginning on the replay in case you missed any of this. But yeah, the one concept approach is my favorite thing now. We've kind of talked about this. You need to be confident at delivering your one concept process. So you need to make sure that you've got it written down, that you've got it blocked out so that you can very clearly explain to the client as you're going through it. And you need to be very clear at the beginning that it's a one concept approach that you have. And also, as you're going through the process, just kind of keep bringing that up. So when I deliver the concept, singular, when I deliver the concept, this is what will happen. And you just bring it up every now and again, just to keep reminding them that it's one concept so that at the end they don't go, oh, showing me one, I thought I would get to see more than one. You need to make sure that the client is very aware of that. Because as I say, if they've had logos done before, they will probably have been given more than one concept. And as I think, was it Julian that mentioned it earlier on? So Carl, have you lost work by going for the one concept approach? You need to be prepared to say no and walk away. So I have lost work because the client has insisted that they wanted multiple concepts, and I've just had to say, well, I'm not the designer for you because that's not how I work. And that can be tricky, especially if you've got no other work on or you've only got small projects on at the time, and logo work can be, as you move up in sort of billing levels, getting a logo can be quite a nice bump to your profit margins, or to any income, and so walking away can be difficult. But for me, if I started going back to multiple concepts, I know that I would instantly, again, as we talked about earlier, is I would start getting resentful, and I would really regret taking it on, because what happens, or what can happen is you take something on, and you take it on, but not on the processes that you should be doing, or you've maybe lowered your fee a little bit to make sure you get the job, and then the next day somebody comes along, is willing to follow your process, pay your full rates, but you can't do it because you're now working on this job which you're hating because it's just not what you want to do, and you can't take the other one on. You say, oh, I'd love to work with you. I'll be able to, do that for you in a couple of weeks. And they're like, I'm sorry, but we need to kind of get moving now. And so you lose out. So you need to be prepared to walk away. That's all I'll say. It's up to you whether you do or not. But for me, I just say it's not my process. My process is my guide. And if someone isn't willing to follow my process, then they're not the right client for me. And I actually said something in the Rocky Brand Discord the other day. I don't know if it was a video I recorded or if it was just typing it in. But it was about essentially, and it was another designer or brand strategist, Ian Hamilton, had said this in a call that I was on with him, and he was, and it's often you forget it quite a lot, is that we bend over backwards to try to win a client. Sometimes we will drop our fees to win the client, or we'll say we can do things earlier, or we'll say we can do it quicker. We'll do anything to win that project because we need the money sometimes. But we forget that that we are an expert in what we do. We have value. What we do is worth something, and the client should be trying to sell themselves to us. They should be trying to sell themselves. I'm a really good client. I'd be great to work with. I'll pay you on time, and I will listen to you, and I value your service. But we very rarely do that. It's always we're trying to impress the client to win the client, and that's why a lot of times you will end up with a bad client, because we're not making the client sell themselves to us. If you just suddenly stopped and went, okay, yeah, I do logo design. Why would you be a good client for me? If you suddenly put the shoe on the other foot and start, it's not what I do. I don't ask the client that, but Ian has a really good scorecard that he has where he marks off different things that he gets from interacting with the client, what they say. He'll maybe look into their background. Is there any bad reviews where they've not paid on time, or and he has I think it's red, amber, and green. So red is a red flag. You definitely don't want to work with them. Amber, you probably don't want to work with them, but there's maybe a couple of good things that you think, well, it could be worth it. And then green is it's a no-brainer, work with that client. So it's I've kind of lost track as to why I got onto that, but it's still a good point to make, is that the client should be trying to impress us that they're the right person to work with. But I just don't think that happens a lot. I think we just, as designers, are a lot of the time desperate to get the work, and so we will take anything on without even thinking about whether the client's going to be good for us. And that's why I think a lot of designers have so many horror stories of things going wrong, projects taking forever. But I mentioned at the start of the call, a lot of the times as well, that can be the designer's fault and not the client's fault. Let's see. I think that was the last thing. It was. And that's, my clock has just gone bang on 8 o'clock, because I was like saying to myself, I think this is an hour today. This is an hour session, not not a crazy 2.5 hour one. But that's my thoughts on the one concept approach, and why it's really helped me. It helped me focus and become a better brand strategist, because I had to. I needed to make sure that everything that I was doing could support my, let's call it an argument, as to why this was the best solution for the brand. By becoming more of an expert and being more confident, that allowed me to build out a really solid process. And by having that process mixed with the confidence and the authority and the ever deepening knowledge of brand strategy, that allowed me to put my prices up, because that's what I'm paying. That's what I'm charging people for, is that knowledge. I'm not the same designer I was 15, 20 years ago. What I was charging back then was probably what I was worth. What I'm worth now is a lot more. And the thing is, I started doing the one concept approach maybe, hard to think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm charging probably 5 times what I charged back then, but my process hasn't changed. I'm not doing any more work than I did back then. What's changed is that I have 5 years more experience and knowledge that goes into the creation of my logo designs, and that has value. So even though the process is the same and I'm doing the same amount of work, the value is in my knowledge, and you need to realize that as well. Don't think, if you've been doing design for, whether it's 1 year or 5 years or 10 years, you go, well, in order to charge more, I need to be doing more, giving more stuff. That's not the case. If you've been designing for 5 years, you have 5 years more experience than you did, a year, like when you started. You can't possibly be charging the same amount of money. You need to value the time and the expertise that you've built up over those 5 years of working with clients, of creating logos. Whether you're still doing 4+ options, whatever, you need to be charging more for whatever it is that you're doing, because your experience has value. And more of us need to realize that. It took me a long time to realize the value that I could bring to a client, because I was stuck in this deliverables thing. How much time I was spending with a pencil on paper, how much time, that's taken me 8 hours to do that, so that I'm going to charge for 8 hours at an hourly rate. That's not how I price things now. I price things based on value and what I can bring to the client. It's more than the time that you spend creating the actual logo design. It's everything added together. So I'll end with that, and I'll check the chat, and we'll see if I've got any questions. So let's have a look-see. So Esther's saying, I created the first logo without much information other than what I'd researched about the client. There are multiple stakeholders and they all have different ideas and gave different feedback. That can be a nightmare when you have different partners and stuff and they all have their own ideas. That's why at the start of every project, I don't particularly like working with businesses where there are, partners. That can get tricky. So if I am going to, I make sure that it's agreed that there will be one decision maker, and I will only agree to the project if there is one decision maker. I'm not going to spend the time going through the process with one of the partners, informing them of the strategy, and then at the end creating that one concept which fits the brand, for 3 other partners to come in at that very last session where I'm presenting the logo concept and they're like, oh, I don't like green. Oh, I don't like that font, because they don't understand the strategy. They don't understand the process we've been through, and they are just giving their personal likes and dislikes, and it just throws everything out the window. And so I make sure that that does not happen. It just doesn't happen anymore. I tend not to work with partnerships because it tends to be messy. But it can work as long as you have a main decision maker in there. Julian's clients often see design as a service industry. Yeah, it's like, just that's like a cheap commodity. And and they'll be like, oh, it's all the same. A logo's a logo. I'll just get the cheapest one. The one whose services are the cheapest. That's fine. A logo's a logo. That's education. It's you have to educate your clients on the value of your services, and that takes time to do that. So, but that's all. It's all that we can keep doing is to try to educate people to the value of good design. It's kind of why I don't really worry about and don't even look at these AI logo design websites and things like that. They don't really concern me, because it's not, the people that use those types of sites aren't the type of people that I'm targeting, so it doesn't really bother me. And yeah, and those AI sites just don't help the kind of the overall impression that design is easy. Design is easy, or you just throw things together. It's easy. Anyone can do it. That's a typical opinion of what we do. Henry's saying the most common thing is I pay you, do the job. Yeah. Julian, that's a worry, Esther. A client showing the logo to many people for feedback. Yeah, it's not a great experience. It's a great experience if everyone's been involved, and so when I say that I deal with one decision maker, part of that agreement is that when if I have a session with that decision maker and we do some work, is that they then deliver the information and the outcomes of that meeting to the other partners, so that the partners are kept up to date with what's going on. It should never be a surprise, at the end. That shouldn't. When you're doing a one concept approach, when you deliver the concept to the client, it should never be a surprise. It should be more a case of, yeah, that fits. That's, sort of, they won't know exactly what it is that you're going to present in terms of a design, but when you present it, it should feel right based on the discussions that they've been having with you. I always include, my clients are involved at regular points. I don't just meet them in the beginning, get a brain dump from them, and then see them at the end. That's not how it works. It's another condition of working with me, is that they must be available at certain points through the process to have a catch up with me. Not a huge amount of time. I'm not going to take up their whole day, but they must agree to meeting with me. And again, that's a non-negotiable. If they can't do that, then I'll walk away. Because it's not part of my process to try to design something without any interaction with the client. Has a client asked? Take it that means to see your sketches. They may, but I don't show my sketches during the process, because that's, in a similar way, that's like giving a client multiple options. What will happen when I'm sketching, and I'm sure when a lot of you are sketching, you're putting down all of just anything that comes into your head. Just crap ideas, good ideas, things that suck, things that look terrible, but you're just brain dumping into your sketchbooks to try, see what can evolve, and then you start applying the knowledge of the strategy to these brain dumps, and you can rule a lot of stuff out, and then you start to get that pinpoint focus on the stuff that's going to work. if I show my client my sketches, there's a very good chance that they're going to lock on to one of the sketches which sucks and does not fit their brand, but they're going to lock on to it because they like the design, or they just, again, personal preference. Oh, I like how that looks. And they're going to lock on to it. And it doesn't matter what you present at the end, because in their head, they're going to always be going, I would really love to see that one polished and, turned into a logo. It's just, and the reason I'm saying that is because it's happened to me on more than one occasion, and I decided no more am I showing my logo sketches. Now, it doesn't mean I never show my logo sketches. What I do is I get to the point, I present my one concept, I get agreement on it that it's the best concept for the brand. We do any refinement that needs to be done, and we finalize the logo. And then what I do is I have a final presentation of that logo where I've created mock-ups showing it in use, and I'll present that fully. And as part of that presentation, not all the time, but if I feel it's a good part of the journey and the story behind where the concept has evolved from, I will present some slides that show snapshots of my sketch work to show the journey of how that concept has evolved, because it's important to kind of, sometimes it's even just to sort of show the client how much work goes into it. Because sometimes, if you just show them one concept and it's a really simple concept, let's just say it was a circle with a line through it, that's when you get, oh my God, we're paying you how much? I could have done that. But in that final presentation, by showing the sketches and how those sketches have developed over time, and we've basically distilled what is essentially a complex conceptual idea into a very simple form, clients are usually impressed by that process. But if you just show them the simple thing and they don't see the process, they'll be like, oh, I could have done that. Is that really the best that you could do? You need to show the stuff that, that makes up that really simple icon. And they're like, oh, wow, you've managed to get all of those ideas into that really simple shape. That can really, and then with all of the mock-ups and stuff, that really sells it to them. But yeah, just be very careful about when you show your sketches. Don't show them early doors, because they'll start to pick and choose. Oh, can you work on that one? Even though you're like, oh, I've only put that there because it was just, I needed to get out of my head. I needed to see what that looked like on paper. And that's what happens when you present multiple concepts. You'll have one, maybe two that you're like, yeah, they're not very good, but I need to have them there because I've said I'm going to present 4. And then the client goes, I like that one, which is the one that you don't like very much. Yeah, I think that's all the questions. So, Esther, thank you for coming on. I'm glad you found this helpful. Don't feel like you need to, if you're watching this and you're doing multiple concepts, that you need to flick a switch and jump into the one concept approach from tomorrow. If you feel like you want to do that, then go for it. But, it's a transition. Just, prepare yourself to make the transition, look at your process, get everything in writing, make sure you're confident with it, because confidence is key behind all of this. It's funny, I was having a chat with Fife today, who works with me, whose role is writer, and we've been working on some blog posts together. And I've noticed that he's been watching my live streams to get a feel for, my tone, how I speak, and so to bring some of that characteristic through into the writing. And I've noticed that he'd written quite a few times the phrase, it's key that you do this, and it's really key that this happens. And I was like, I bet you I say key a lot. And I've noticed that I've said it a few times tonight. So it's one of those things that, everyone has a certain phrase or something that they say, and mine appears to be, it's key. It's key that you do this. I need to find other words. It's essential, it's important rather than it's key. But now that I've said that, you'll be watching my videos and you'll probably be like, he's saying it again. He said key again. He says it a lot. But thanks for joining. I was actually excited to talk about this one today because I love this one concept approach, and I think it's a powerful approach, and I think more people would benefit from it. But I also understand that there can be it can be a scary move to move from sort of multiple concept approaches to hanging everything onto one concept. And I suppose I should cover the fact that have I presented one concept and the client's just been like, no, we're not moving forward with that. Yes, it has happened. It has happened. I'd say maybe out of, I don't know how many logos I've done on the one concept, but let's say it's 20. It's probably more than 20. But out of 20, I've maybe had one where that's happened. And it did come as a shock. It's like, okay. And we sat down and we talked about, why isn't it? And a strong part of it was they couldn't get over their own personal likes or dislikes. But also an important part of information came out during that discussion that wasn't included in the early part of the formation of the strategic stuff that would have made a massive difference to the outcomes of the design process. And so, there was a discussion there, and unfortunately for the client, there was additional fees. We did continue, and I had to go away and create another concept, but I was compensated for that, because it was extra time and it was information that should have been given at the beginning, because I did ask the questions, but they didn't provide that as the answer. They said, I can't even remember what it was, but the answer they gave was something to do with how they felt the brand should have gone, but in reality it didn't actually fit the real goals that they wanted. And so I was kind of set up, like, instead of a straight path, I was kind of sent off to the side. And so my concept, when I did it, was sort of over here rather than here. And so when we had the further discussion, and then they gave me the answer that allowed me to stay on the path. And then when I created the second concept, they had the reaction of, yes, this is us. This is who the brand needs to be. And so I have had a no. But that's where the confidence comes in, is if you get a no, if I get a no, I'm like, okay, I don't feel that I feel I followed my process and I'm doing all the right things. So what's missing? What's missing? What have we missed that means this concept isn't working? Let's have a chat about that. So there's usually something's missing, or something hasn't been provided. Something hasn't been provided. So I don't panic. I'm like, I don't panic, because I am a natural born warrior. But with the one concept, where I get nervous presenting a new concept. I always get nervous. Sleepless nights. You're like, because you've put everything into it. But I still have that confidence that what I'm delivering is solid. So to stop me repeating myself a million times, I'm going to say hello to Adam and bye to Adam, who's late to the party. at the end of the call. It's a short live stream compared to others, Adam, so you can, watching back the replay won't take too much of your time, and I hope that you find it valuable. So we'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. We'll see what interesting topic that we have. One of the, just to kind of jump back and talk about the old Discord again, is that if you're a Discord member, one of the benefits to that is that you can influence me on what the topics should be for the YouTube live streams. So, I have a feedback and suggestions channel in the Discord that you can go into and ask questions and say, hey, I would love it if you could talk about this type of topic. And also, if you're looking for a review of your logo on the live stream, then being a Discord member will get you priority in that area. Okay, so have a good one. And until I see you next time, or until I see you in the Discord, stay creative, folks. Have a great week in business. Bye for now.